All right, everyone. The other day, Bernie Sanders endorsed Cenk Uygur. He's running for Katie Hill's old seat within the U.S. House. It's in a California district that leans somewhat blue. Katie Hill, of course, you'll remember, is the House Representative member. Her spouse, I guess there was some sort of fight and leaked photos of her, smoking weed and sunbathing naked and being naked while doing the hair of her colleague, which was the only one I thought was weird. It's like, I don't really care because the eyes wide shut sort of stuff that these people in Congress get up to, I'm sure Katie Hill's shit pales in comparison. She just wasn't so good at making sure that those pictures didn't get out. I don't really care if people in Congress smoke weed. It's legal in D.C. anyway. Maybe calm them down. Maybe they should be forced to smoke weed. Anyway, she resigns because she's been, disgraced. And it was funny because people tried to chalk it up to sexism, and it's like, no, if a dude in Congress had pictures of him with his dick out smoking a bong, he'd resign too. Don't fucking try to kid yourselves about this non-existent sexism in Congress. If anything, you're moving towards gynocentrism in some cases. Democrats keep pretending like a candidate can't win unless they are a minority. Like, oh my god, if they're both white and male and they don't happen to have a gay marriage, then they're not viable or something, and it's kind of weird. But Cenk is running in place of that. She leaves. Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks, Buffalo Man himself. By the way, am I allowed to criticize him at all? Like, am I allowed to be critical of him in this video? YouTube hasn't made it clear because apparently the new TOS protect public figures too. I guess I'm not allowed to make too many jokes about him. All I can say is that I disagree with him and I think that his politics are terrible. I guess political views aren't a protected class, yes, so I can say that if you were to adopt his economic beliefs, the entire world's economy would completely crumble. Anyway, Bernie Sanders endorsed him. Then Bernie Sanders was told by all of his fans, hey, Cenk on his blog 15 years ago was making statements that would be considered sexist and other things as well, and it was kind of weird. Apparently, he started with his blogging, and actually it's funny, because there's a smaller time YouTuber that sounds exactly the same, and that's Progressive Voice. If you've looked at his content, especially on Twitter or some of the live streams, a lot of it is really disrespectful towards women. I'm not even joking. I'm not being hyperbolic here, but I mean beyond what you would hear from MRAs. And this seems to be fairly common among so-called progressives, is this strain of what you could literally call sexism. It's not like manspreading or microaggressions. No pink-haired bullshit like that. I mean generally people just talking like womanizers in a crude way. And Cenk apparently did this on his blog. Now, I think he's already addressed and apologized for it, but here's the thing. In today's outrage mob style left, Bernie Sanders cannot gain or give endorsement to someone without huge levels of disavowal if they've ever done anything that could possibly be construed as offensive to somebody who is a regular Tumblr user. Unfortunately, that's basically everyone, because everyone has a past, especially in the internet era. Everyone has said things, and I allege this of literally everyone. Everyone has said something at some point in the last 20 years that would offend somebody today of some branch of politics. It's just the way things work because things move so quickly. It's like the sort of conventional ideas that somebody had in 1940. By the middle of the 1960s, a lot of people would have frowned on. The kind of views people had in 1970, look ahead at 1995 and see how they would be heralded. They'd be considered outdated and chuckleable at first, and then eventually they would be despised and not tolerated. That's just the way things work. Things, by the way, are not unidirectional. They move in all sorts of weird political and social directions. So it's funny because Bernie Sanders withdraws his endorsement. I guess the excuse given was, he's rejecting all endorsements. He doesn't want anyone to endorse him. Really, what I have a feeling happened is that Bernie Sanders realized he just stepped on a landmine and he had to very carefully diffuse it out from under him before stepping off. What fucking level of damage control is that when Bernie Sanders, still riding at second in the Dem field, accidentally endorses someone who alienates half of his fans? By the way, they're still trying to cast Sanders off as he's too tolerant of anti-Semites, and in some people say, he's sexist, or he's he said something 30 years ago that could be vaguely considered phobic in some way. Bernie Sanders is not. He's just a fiery, goofy old man. It's just all he is. But the idea that he would know that Cenk had said these things on a blog 15 years ago, that's stretching it a little. Look, I realize that there's a heavy anti-Bernie sentiment among most sane Democrats because they don't want to lose the election. Hell, I would have it too. If I were a Democrat, I'd be an anti-Bernie. I'd be a never Bernier. Because I wouldn't want someone to win who clearly would fail in the general election and could very well drop dead on stage anyway. He's an old man with health issues. I wouldn't want to nominate him either because he's a fucking loser. But that doesn't mean that he's endorsing sexism because he endorsed a candidate who said sexist things in the past. And I realize some people say, well, if you look even now, like over the last few years, he still sort of says like weird shit involving women. And you look at the way Kasparian is treated, and I think like Cenk denies the Armenian genocide among other things, and I think doesn't Kasparian have like roots there or something if I remember correctly, and that may just be a meme. I realize that, but the idea that he's an open, avowed sexist, the only standards you could apply that would make that seem relevant, legitimate, would be far left standards. Well, see, there's the problem. Bernie Sanders is far left, and so is his audience. Now, if Bernie Sanders were center-right, his audience wouldn't care. His audience would say, withdraw your endorsement because Cenk could very well lose, and it's a bad idea to hitch your wagon to that particular horse. And it is possible, by the way, that he won't win. I think he has an advantage simply because he's filling the technically incumbent seat from the far left side in a state like California. He's going to have a lot of unseen hand-style forces behind him, because here's the thing. Cenk has been astroturfed on YouTube. The Young Turks is not a progressive at this point, certainly not an independent broadcasting group. He's sitting there meeting with the CEO of YouTube, for Christ's sake. Yeah, he's so independent. No, it's astroturfed fake independent commentary that was cast as though it was independently made, despite the fact that it's always been heftily bankrolled by corporatist billionaires, Soros and others. It's bankrolled directly by them. It's globalistic, it's communistic, and it's bullshit, basically. The fact is, though, that he could still lose despite all that big money behind him. And he's pulling an Elizabeth Warren, which is you've got a fake grassroots movement like, oh, I'm independent, I'm self-made. Well, no, I mean, it's a grift off of authentic leftism. Another reason why Bernie Sanders people wouldn't want to endorse you. That being said, he could win. It's absolutely possible that Cenk will end up being in Congress. By the way, what bigger way to sell out than to become a member of the D.C. swamp? Like, you're a junior House member, really going to solve all the problems in Congress? Dude, if anything, if he's really positively intentioned, the second he gets there, he'll be jaded and demoralized and black-pilled to such a degree he won't even be able to function anymore. Like, that dude's going to need huge amounts of fucking gin and tonic or whatever he drinks to just get through the day by the time he gets through even a few months being in D.C. I don't even know why, career-wise, Cenk is even bothering to do this. You're sitting there, you got an audience of millions of people. You got a good thing going. You've got your studio and the will of YouTube behind you, and you're one of the priority creators that gets constantly forced down everyone's throats. Why would you throw that away for the kind of budget that a House member gets? The very least, go for a Senate seat. Fucking, I don't even know what the dude's doing at this point. But I also don't know why Bernie Sanders wouldn't have consulted with people before fucking endorsing him in the first place. You had to know that your extremely far-left audience, your Tumblr-right Bernie bro audience, is not going to like Cenk Uygur. It's two totally different schools of leftism. This, by the way, why the left is not going to rise up in the U.S. People on the right are worried, oh my god, the left is getting bigger. Yeah, it's more schismatic. You've got more groups within the left. They fucking hate each other. They can't cooperate. They're not able to coordinate anything. It's just the way that they work because they don't have any strategic thinking. That's about all. Peace out.